Welcome to Running Hot, Action Network's motorsports betting podcast. I'm your host, Nick Giffen, predictive analyst here at Action Network. And, of course, joining me, as always, my co-host, Stephen Young of Roto Grinders, better known as Stevie TPFL. And this week, we're talking bets for the Crackel Barrel 400 at Nashville Superspeedway here on Running Hot. Last weekend at Charlotte, Ross Chastain passed William Byron very late on to go from last to first and claim the Coca-Cola 600 ahead of Byron, and then Chase Briscoe rounded out the top three. Sounded like, overall, and I definitely agree after watching that race, some very good reviews from Charlotte. We also, of course, had the Indy 500 and the Monaco Grand Prix. So, Stevie, thoughts on the 600 especially, but also on just the race weekend as a whole?
How cool was it for Ross Chastain to finish and say, "We won the World 600"?
Yeah,
brings back flashbacks. But good for Ross. I think Ross is awesome for the sport. I think William Byron took it like a champ. I think Ross passed him how you should pass somebody. It was clean enough. He put a slide job on him, and Byron had two choices. Byron could really just lay into the back bumper or try to make a pass, and once Ross got in front of him, he kind of checked out there. So loved how he passed him. Loved the race. I thought the race was awesome. 1.5s. I tweeted this out. Let's get rid of the Roval. Let's just run 2 oval races at Charlotte. The racing's great. I love the Prime broadcast. I thought they did an excellent job pre-race. I thought they did an excellent job during the race. Love the post-race stuff. It's invaluable for us as bettors, as fantasy players, as NASCAR fans to have Carl Edwards giving his thoughts, because this guy is a Hall of Famer. And we're getting to hear his thoughts, and it's just great. So loved the 600. I thought it was awesome. I thought Indy was really cool. I think it would have been really cool to see the end of that race without the 2 lap cars right there for the last 15, 20 laps. It would have been really cool to see how that kind of played out. And Monaco is Monaco. That race is iconic, but it is what it is. It's follow the leader, and no offense to Monaco. It's just, that's the type of racing that you have to do. You have to go out and run clean lap after clean lap and be an inch away from the wall. And, that's just what Monaco is. And, no discounting those guys. They're some of the best drivers in the world. It is what it is there. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought all 3 races were interesting. Monaco was different because they, of course, made you pit twice this year. So
yeah,
brought a little bit of change, but there really wasn't any passing in the top 10. It did close up at one point when they were all kind of stuck behind Max Verstappen, who had yet to make his final pit stop. Then once he made his pit stop, Lando Norris pulled out and away to the victory. He was both of our pick to win for Monaco. And then Indy 500, you mentioned the lappers. I was okay with it. That's just the nature of Indy, right? We've seen it before. Yeah. That's how Helio Castroneves in 2021 won the race. He got the tow from the lappers in front of him and stayed out in front. We've seen J.R. Hildebrand in the last corner in 2011 lose because of a lap car. That's the nature of Indy. And it didn't bother me to see the lappers there for 15 or so laps. That was just kind of added to the drama, but it also made it harder past Alex Palou because he was getting the tow off the lap cars, which was able to keep him out in front of Marcus Ericsson. And then, the 600 was an awesome race, especially the 3rd and 4th stages. We saw Denny pass Byron after a few laps, and then Byron would pass him back on the really long run. And then we saw Ross get into the mix. It was a lot of fun. So I thought it was a really great Coca-Cola 600 and great betting weekend for me. Stevie, I'm going to toot my own horn a little bit. Over 16 units profit tracked in the Action app. A little bit more as well from some non-track bets. For example, on Grid Rival, we don't have that in the Action app, but gave that out on the Indy 500 podcast for Running Hot. A Grid Rival pick there that hit, as well as a couple others in my articles. So really awesome weekend. Definitely my best motorsports triple header betting weekend of all time. But that's a look back at last week. This week, we're headed to Nashville Superspeedway, as they call it. It is not a superspeedway in terms of the racing. It is not a drafting track, but it is a 1.3 mile concrete track, tri-oval shaped. And its banking is kind of between, your typical 1.5 mile banking where you're like 17 to 20 degrees. and your flat track banking, which is like maxes out at 10, 11 degrees like Phoenix. So it's got a little bit of traits of everything. It's concrete, it's intermediate-ish, but it's not super high banked, a little more on the flat side in terms of an intermediate track. So talk about racing at Nashville, Stevie.
It's interesting because it's fast, it's flat, it's concrete. It's very different than anywhere else we go. I mean, the tires, we see a lot of the 1.5 tires that, that we've run a lot this season already. Like the left side tire is that new left side tire that we've seen at Vegas, Homestead, Darlington, Texas, Kansas. So we have data with this left side tire. The right side tire is the same tire that they've been running here. So they are hoping for a little bit more fall off. I mean, if you think back to last year's race, it was a really good race. And then the last 30 laps was just kind of a shit show, I think is the best way to say it. I mean, there was just fuel issues. There was spins. There was, I mean, if you look at some of the end of that race, it was just really ugly. So when you're looking at the data from last year, look at the speed. Don't look at finishing because it won't do justice. So, I mean, I look at the high speed intermediates when I'm comping Nashville, but realistically, I'm going to be relying a lot on practice and past data here because it's just such a unique racetrack. And if the left side tire is not a huge difference, I think the guys that have been good here in the next gen car are going to be good this weekend.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of ways to kind of look at Nashville, but I think the best way to look at it is just its own unique track. So who's been good at Nashville? I think that's going to be important, looking at speed. And as you mentioned, very important to look at speed at Nashville from last year, not necessarily finishing position, because, the race, the final stage kind of played out relatively cleanly until about 2 to go. Austin Cindric spins out, and then just all hell breaks loose on the next 4 overtime restarts. We had a 5th overtime.
It was so miserable.
Complete the race, yeah. And Joey Logano won it on fuel mileage, but Denny Hamlin would have won it 3 or 4 different times had crashes on these restarts not happened. We had Kyle Busch up there, we had Kyle Larson up there, Chase Elliott up there, right? All and sorts of things happened to all sorts of different drivers, and Joey Logano ended up winning that race, but. Make sure you're looking at speed from last year's Nashville race. I want to go back to those tires. As you mentioned, the Cup teams have run this exact same combination of left and right side tires at Homestead, Darlington, Las Vegas, Texas, and Kansas. So pretty much every intermediate we've been at except Charlotte this past weekend. Definitely you got to bring in some of that intermediate track data. It's a concrete track, Nashville is, so you can use a little bit of Dover and Bristol from the concrete side of things, a little bit of flat. Maybe you pull in a little bit of Phoenix as a kind of a mile more similar on the banking. So really, Stevie, when it all comes down to is, what's your recent form like at non-drafting ovals,
Yeah.
And then how do you perform in the past at Nashville? So I think that's kind of a fair handicap. What do you think?
No, I think you nailed it between both of us, what we said there. Yeah. What's your current form? how good are you? Recently, I mean, it's definitely an interesting race to handicap. I know we are a betting podcast and we have some bets that we're going to talk about, but I mean, 75% of my bets will probably be after practice this week. Just because they're not giving us a ton of value to start the week anyway, and we've seen this a lot on intermediate tracks this year. So I think this is a week where you're going to be relying a little bit more on towards the end of the week type of stuff, Saturday, making bets Saturday night, Sunday morning.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you. I think especially just given the way on intermediate tracks, especially practice data has been so useful during the actual race. If you look at my practice flags or your practice rankings, they've been very good at matching up with performance in the races. Not necessarily finishing because, of course, things happen, but in terms of speed in the races, speed in practice has been a very good predictor this year. So I think that'll continue at Nashville. And that's where we get to the bets, right? We have bets, but it does feel a little bit like we're kind of pulling teeth a little bit, just trying to scrape whatever value is out there. So, I would definitely urge taking some caution this week, right? Stevie and I, we each have 2 picks and we have our victory lane. So it's 5 bets overall. But you don't have to bet all of them. You can just kind of, just based off the way we're talking about them, pick and choose between them. What do you think is the best? Stevie's got a little bit shorter odds bets than I do. I tend to go a little bit longer when there's I'm waiting for practice and qualifying, then I'll get a little more aggressive with some shorter odds bets potentially. So just a little different philosophies, but between our 5 picks, hopefully you guys will be able to find some bets that work for you. So let's dive into those bets. As always, we'll go through the race stage by stage. We each give a pick in stage 1 as our shorter odds bet, and then another pick in stage 2. So we get a little bit longer in the odds. Finally, we'll race through stage 3 and end up in victory lane with our combined favorite bet. So it's time to throw the green flag on Crackel Barrel 400 and fire off for stage 1. All right, stage 1, Stevie, I talked about it. You're going to be a little bit shorter on the odds, and you're going to a top 10 bet here. What do you got?
Yeah, and this one's not necessarily like track history. This is just a guy that it's Josh Berry, top 10 plus 130. So I really like where their intermediate package is this year, just in general. We've seen a lot of really good stuff from this car in particular. And if we look at like some of his concrete data, even from last year, and if we look at some of his concrete data from when he was with JRM in the Xfinity series, a lot of really positive signs. I think this is one that I wanted. I mean, I did bet this. I already bet this early this week. And one of the reasons I bet this early this week is like he's going out pretty late in qualifying. I think he's like 12th or 13th to go. So I think he's going to qualify well. I think he's going to have practice speed. So I don't think I'm going to get better than plus 130 or in that range. So I'm betting this one early because of all those factors. And I think like Josh Berry, very underrated talent, especially on these like flatter concrete intermediate type of racetracks. We've seen him run really well this year just in general. So jumping on this one kind of early where I think I'll wait on like, Ryan Blaney, Bubba Wallace, Larson, Bowman bets because, I mean, they're qualifying so early and we've seen how this car is like the metric qualifying aspect of it. So jumping on this Josh Berry top 10 at plus 130 here on Wednesday.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You mentioned qualifying, and one thing I do think, while the qualifying definitely, the order matters and where you end up in qualifying, for your starting position matters. I found it has mattered maybe a little less than in years past. Books are getting a little bit smarter about not over adjusting for qualifying. They still do adjust for it for sure. And I've also noticed they've been getting really good at adjusting for practice. So definitely becoming a sharper market, but at the same time, you're going to want to get on the value early if you believe it is going to shorten. And the way Josh Berry, like you said, it's not so much track history, but in this case, it's recent form. You've mentioned Josh Berry's been performing so well in the intermediate package. That's one of these kind of current form, just all around intermediate, plus the concrete data you mentioned there. So Josh Berry, top 10 plus 130 is your stage 1 pick. For me, I'm going to go to a group bet. If you go over to DraftKings Group B, it is a group of Ryan Blaney, Tyler Reddick, Ross Chastain, and Chase Elliott. And I'm going to take half a unit each on Ross Chastain and Chase Elliott. 3-1 on Ross Chastain, plus 350 on Chase Elliott. And honestly, I think these might be the 2 best drivers in this group at Nashville and on concrete tracks in general. If you look, for example, just at concrete track data in the next gen era, these are the 2 best drivers in this group in terms of driver rating, average running position, green flag speed, all those things. Ryan Blaney and Tyler Reddick right behind both of these 2 drivers, Chase Elliott and Ross Chastain, on concrete tracks. Then, just looking at track history, Ross Chastain, he's been awesome here. Chase Elliott, he has been awesome here. So, Chase Elliott, winner at Nashville in 2022, the first year of the next gen car, finished 4th the next year after that. And then last year, finished 18th, but he was running up inside the top 3 rows. He was the one that actually ended up spinning Kyle Busch out when Kyle Larson ran out of fuel on the second to last restart. So it was Larson getting pushed by Kyle Busch. Larson runs out of fuel. Chase Elliott has nowhere to go because everybody's pushing, spins out Kyle Busch, and Chase Elliott ends up having to pit for fuel as well. But he was running inside that top 6 or so at the end of the race. So Chase Elliott, very strong track history here. And speaking of track history, let's go to Track House with Ross Chastain. And he's been also fantastic here. Second in 2021, which is the last year of the Gen 6 car, when he was racing with Chip Ganassi Racing. Then 5th here in 2022, which was the year Chase Elliott won, first year of the next gen car. Ross was at Trackhouse at that point. 2023 winner here. And then last year, DNF finished 33rd, but Ross Chastain and Chase Elliott, I think, are the two best drivers in this group, Stevie, at this track.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at just the speed, if we look at raw speed at Nashville with the next gen car, both of these guys are inside the top 5. Blaney is 6. Reddick is like 9th, but Reddick was one of the best cars here last year, so they obviously hit on something. So I like this. I'm with you. I tailed it as you were talking about it because I was looking at my speed metrics and like it lines up perfectly. So I'm with you. I threw a half a unit on both on Ross and on Elliott here because I think I agree with you. I think that they're the two best in this group. I think this is a really good find here early in the week.
All right, so we'll recap stage 1 here. Stevie has Josh Berry for a top 10 finish at plus 130. And I am over at DraftKings Group B taking Ross Chastain and Chase Elliott for a half unit each to win Group B. So that is stage 1. We're going to throw the green and white checkered on that one. Pit, refuel, get some new tires, and fire off for stage 2. All right, stage 2, Stevie, another top 10 bet here for you. This one definitely seems a little more track history, concrete track-ish.
Okay, I have been on the fence. I have not bet a lot on this guy this year, as much as we bet him last year, and know that like it's coming. I'm going Ty Gibbs here, top 10, plus 130. I know, like I live in Florida, so I always give out the numbers that I bet this at. I know you talked about before the show. I think it was Caesars had it at plus 150. Obviously, if you can get it better than 130, I like that too. Track history is really good for Ty Gibbs. He was really fast here in 2023 and 2024. So this is a track history bet. You know, the finishes weren't there, but again, we talked about it at the beginning of the show. The finishes were kind of all over the place. But if we look at the intermediate package for JGR, it is progressively getting better and better as we get going here. Whatever they were missing on at the beginning of the year, they're starting to hit on. We saw Bell fast. We saw Denny really fast last weekend. We saw Ty Gibbs has been a lot faster and better here. So again, I don't really love a lot this week, but I did jump on this top 10 at plus money just because I think, like you said, books are getting smarter. They're going to adjust the practice speeds, and I think Ty Gibbs is going to have a really good practice session on Saturday.
Yeah, and I mean, you're buying low on Ty Gibbs. He's running 25th in points right now, coming off 3 straight intermediate track finishes of 23rd, 28th, and 24th. So this is a spot where if you're going to back Ty Gibbs, you're buying low on him. And you mentioned the speed at Nashville the last 2 times he's raced here in the Cup Series. Well, just concrete tracks in general as well, right? Finished 3rd at Bristol earlier this year. Last year, Bristol led a lot of that race. It was the whole tire deal, but was very good outside of the tire management aspect of that. And has run well at both Dover races in the Cup Series. So, Concrete Gibbs might be the spot to buy low on him. We bought low on him at Bristol, and he finished 3rd. And then we bought low on him, or you're buying low on him here at Nashville. So, shop around. If you have plus 130 availability, that's what Stevie got. If you have plus 140 or plus 150 available, I do see those numbers on Ty Gibbs out there as well. I am also going to go to a top 10 bet for my stage 2 pick, but I'm going to go down the odds board here, Stevie, and I'm just going to try to get on this guy before things potentially go well for him, and that's Ricky Stenhouse Jr. for a top 10 finish at 7-1. And dude, look at the points. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is 13th in the point standings. Look at his finishes on the intermediate tracks in that 3-race stretch that we talked about. Ty Gibbs, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has finished 6th, 19th, and 11th. He also has that 18th place at Las Vegas earlier this year. And Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has always been good at concrete tracks. You look at 2022, finished 2nd at Dover. He's always been great at Bristol on the concrete. And at Nashville, he has had some solid speed and results, finishing 6th in 2021 at Nashville. Also had a 16th a year later. So Ricky Stenhouse Jr. performing very well this year, especially recently on intermediates, and has had some good concrete data in the past. And at 7-1, it's long enough early in the week for me that, if I miss out and he lengthens to 8 or 9 or 10-1, I still got a good price at 7, not in terms of like closing line value, but just still it's a long shot, right? So you're just hoping for the long shot to hit. And we've seen last year with just how wild Nashville got. Sometimes wild things can happen here, and we can get some long shots inside that top 10. So I'm going to take Ricky Stenhouse Jr. for a top 10 finish, 7-1.
Like where they're at right now, single car teams, it's really tough just in general, but I think Stenhouse and this team as an organization is doing really good. He's going out later in qualifying, which is going to potentially give him a little bit of an edge track position wise. Like, this is a concrete racetrack. Like, the racetrack is going to get cleaned up, and like there's going to be a little bit of an edge going out late in this run here for qualifying. So that's always a plus. Like, I don't mind Stenhouse. I don't mind Stenhouse on concrete tracks. The only thing that I don't love about Stenhouse is flat tracks, but I like where his speed is at just in general this year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he tends to be better at the steeper tracks, but this isn't the flattest of flat tracks, right? He did finish 6th at Nashville 2021, so it is a track. It races like an intermediate track, right? In terms of the speed that you get at this track, it's a pretty high speed track. So I do think it comps well to the intermediate 1.5 mile ovals as well. And hey, we are using the intermediate package as well. So recapping stage 2 here, Ty Gibbs top 10 finish for Stevie. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. top 10 finish for me. So that'll conclude stage 2. We'll drive through stage 3 and end up in victory lane with our combined victory lane pick. And this one was easy for us, Stevie. I said, you said, where are we at for victory lane? What do you got? And I said, I'm feeling the chalk with Denny Hamlin. And you're like, right on, me too. So Denny Hamlin, 6-1 is our victory lane pick.
The speed is there. Just if you look at the last 3 races, outside of a few issues, like, he has just been extremely fast. He was one of the best cars last weekend. They didn't get the fuel tank filled all the way. He had to make a pit stop with 12 laps to go, and it ruined his weekend. The clutch issue at, was it Kansas or Texas? Like, and then he had another issue at whatever the other one of those tracks was. But the speed is there. He ranks first in speed here with the next gen car. He's been fast all 3 races here. I mean, he should have won the race last year. Had all the chaos that happened, like, he was in the driver's seat, and he should have won the race last year. So, adding all of that up, him and Bell were the 2 best cars here last year. I expect JGR to be fast again this weekend. So, yeah, I'm all aboard the Denny Hamlin train here. Like, I feel like this unlucky streak that he's on is going to snap, and what better than a intermediate flat concrete racetrack? Like, check with Denny Hamlin.
Oh yeah, exactly. Intermediate, flat, concrete. Those are like all the boxes checked, as you mentioned, and far and away number 1 in the next gen era on concrete tracks as a whole. So Denny Hamlin 6-1 is our victory lane pick for the Crackel Barrel 400 at Nashville. And that will do it for us. Thanks for listening to the Crackel Barrel 400 episode of Running Hot, Action Network's Motorsports Betting Podcast. If you'd like to tell some of the bets we discussed today, look for the quick slip link in the podcast and video description, or go to actionnetwork.com/bet now. We'll be back next week to talk bets for the Firekeepers Casino 400 at Michigan International Speedway. On behalf of my co-host, Stephen Young, thanks again for listening. We'll see you back here next week on Running Hot from Action Network.